right then. Just give me a second to share screen. Can anyone see my screen?
Yeah, I see it.
All right, so so we will get started with the OLM repo first, probably for half an hour, and then gonna go over to the registry repo on the second half of the meeting. And obviously we'll go over some new issue first, and then we're gonna go back down to the bottom of the list and hopefully try to resolve some of the issue as well. And you know, I would like to do some changing here. And you can see even for this particular report or report, we having quite a huge backlog of issue, and some of them go back to, you know, probably many years ago. And I would refer us to go later on in this meeting, go through when we get to the bottom of the list to actually close out as many of them as possible, because I feel like many of them is incredibly stale and it's no longer value for us to having way too many issue in here that basically will never get touched. And we should close it out, because the issue that actually in the middle will never get touched if we won't be able to close out the meeting that from many years ago. And if they continue to be on the list, it's not really helpful, because I'm pretty sure many of them is no longer relevant anymore, and there's no reason for us to keep them there. And we should close it out and just give a chance to the author if they still having issue with that to reopen it or create a new issue that can be a bit more updated if possible. So I'm gonna aggressively close them out today if I can on the issue on both repos. Just an FYI there. Okay, so let's get started with some new issue first. And I would try to ignore the issue related to some of the testing stuff that we're currently doing. For the update, the Go registry, I'm saying Golang, for the first issue, the Golang dependency. Do we have a PR for this up yet, team?
I haven't tackled it, but I'm gonna have some free time later this week, so I don't mind tackling it.
I will assign to you for now. And if you need to dedicate that to someone else, we will deal with that later. This is just, you know, dependency update for the repo. Should not be anything major here. All right, thank you. The next one, the 2544, is the testing issue. Next one, testing. Some ignore all of that. The next issue in a support setting.
Nick, did you make a comment on this, or is that in Slack that this probably doesn't affect what they thought it was?
It's linked to another issue. Actually,
Yeah.
a PR actually.
Is this person on the call?
I don't think so. Let me double check. No, I don't see the name.
Let me try to dig that back up. It wasn't on Slack, you're right. Yeah, I can't find it right away, but in short, I don't think the sync of the catalog source is going to affect how quickly package manifests get reconciled.
Yeah,
right?
They are two different things. Yeah,
it's a completely different controller.
Correct. I mean, the package manifest is for the console. So is this a console problem in the way that they are complaining, and I mean, this particular person complaining that the console doesn't reflect the information quickly enough?
Is this, are they conflating? I'm wondering if they're actually conflating the sync time in the resolver and the actual like polling time of the catalog source itself. Right. It says sometimes we need to upgrade the operator relatively quickly. I think maybe what they're saying is like, hey, we don't want to wait for like stuff to get pulled, like wait that long for updates to the catalogs. Right. Like maybe this is like a dev workflow kind of thing.
I think we need to clarify the problem that they're seeing. So maybe we could just respond saying the sync time of the catalog source operator doesn't affect how quickly updates are detected for a given catalog source image, and definitely doesn't affect package manifest since it's a completely separate controller. So could you please fill us in on what you're trying to achieve here?
Yeah, that's a good probabilism. Yeah, I think Nick's right. I agree with Nick. Probably need some clarification here on what exactly the problem specifically that they seeing here, because just saying something taking too long, in what meaning here? In terms like it can be what Kevin said, a resolution that doesn't happening quickly enough, or some information that they try specifically looking for that doesn't seem to get pulling down in terms of catalog source wise. And they particularly interested, I think this specific line on the 189 here on the new source storage with a 10-second or 10-minute here specifically that they seem to be interested in, and I'm not entirely sure why. So yeah, a clarification would be nice. Nick, would you mind typing that on this issue if you don't mind, given you seem to having a conversation. I try to dedicate it a little bit, not me typing all the time because it's gonna take the meeting too long. If you don't mind, that would be nice. Thank you, Nick. All right then, let's move on to the next issue. I assume this 2537 is the test issue, right? So I'm gonna move on from that. And this issue, the feature request actually.
Oh, is this the Quay GC thing I think we were talking about in Slack? I think Nick might also know. Because we have some, what are they, image triggers, Quay image build triggers for PRs that we disabled for like Go releaser. I don't know if that was correlated with this.
I think this is a different problem though. Like, I think this is this is coming from somebody who is on like the maintenance team for the Minikube add-ons, and they're basically saying like, hey, one of the manifests for OLM install is just pointing to a latest tag, and we don't want it to do that.
Yes, let's not do that. That's the answer.
I agree. We don't own that image at all. So we're gonna
operator hub.io catalog latest. This is the catalog.
Yeah, right. But this is the upstream. This is like the one that's from operator hub.io.
Yeah, that's correct.
I believe that's not owned. Like, we used to own that image. It got moved, and then now some other repository builds it. That's actually not even part of operator framework anymore.
That's fair. I think all we need to do is like suggest a specific tag for a release if they have them, and then that should do the trick, hopefully, right?
Well, don't we also control the manifest though, Nick? And so it could just be a quick sweeping change. Don't use catalog, or don't use the latest tag on our side, because olm.yaml is a release artifact, right?
But it's in the Minikube repo. It's not. We don't control that. That's something somebody wrote an add-on manifests in the Minikube repo.
Okay, yeah, that's my bad then, guys.
Right, so we can just open a PR.
I don't know that it's that simple though, right? Because like, well, so we totally can do that. It's going to very quickly get out of date unless there's some process for keeping it updated in some way, right?
I mean, the whole problem I think is that it does change underneath them, the hashes themselves, and they can't have that happening. So we're gonna
Yes,
have to have something.
what they want is they want it to be related to some particular release, but the release cycle of that catalog is completely unrelated to OLM. So like, I guess that to me that's the real problem. And I don't know if there's a way for us to just trivially resolve that by point. Like, I mean, I guess maybe what we could do is every time we cut an OLM release, we could tag a copy of that image just for this thing.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's just like, that's an R process thing, and it will mean that stuff gets out of date in some cases, but it solves this problem. I don't know.
That's pretty reasonable. I think that's one of the things we talked about when this first came up too. Like they could have just tagged their own image that they care about and managed it. So.
All right then. So we still need to talk to whoever owning this image, so they can actually tag using a specific tag for this. Not using the latest.
I think it's unlikely that they are going to do this, right? Because it's not their release process that's wrong. The problem is our release process doesn't line up with the way they release that image. So I think it's going to be on us to tag that image at a particular time, like whenever we cut an OLM release.
Alternatively,
Okay.
we go and ask the folks that build this catalog to just tag it with like a date string every time they build it.
Sure. I guess. Do we want to own? Do we want to own this add-on manifest?
I see. Yeah.
Like somebody's got to update that thing. So I guess
I mean,
I'm imagining that it's got to be part of our process if we're going to own it. So the easiest thing would be tie it to our release process. But I mean,
on the flip side, like someone clearly made the effort to go and own it themselves, and they clearly still care about it since they're filing issues in our project about it. So it seems like someone is maintaining it, and all they're saying is, hey, we just need some non-latest tag that doesn't change. And we'll keep maintaining it, and we'll, every now and then we'll see there's a new version of that thing and we'll go bump it. And then it's more on that community to say, hey, we're not bumping this fast enough. Can we come up with a process? And maybe then they come back and ask us like, hey, would you guys, be interested in maintaining this? But
they actually are asking us to maintain it at the bottom of this request.
well, yeah, okay then.
But yeah, I get your point.
I mean, it might be pretty trivial to like tack this on as like a release, another step in the release process, like the dev release process we have in the OLM repository. I don't think it would be a ton of maintenance.
If only there was a way in Quay to tell it, don't clean up, don't garbage collect for this repo. Because that's why this is failing.
Yeah.
Alternatively, like they don't have to supply a default catalog at all, right? Like, I mean, which makes it so like there's nothing to install right away, but at least they don't have this problem.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, it seemed to me that we still need to discussing how this particular update process gonna be get integrated into our, typical OM release to make this thing work. Because at the moment, obviously, we do not update this add-on on our end at all. So basically, raise up the question when we just said that do we want to own this, and who was the one doing this in the first place? Somehow, while you were talking about this, I having a new impression that actually one of us, one way or the other, actually did this. I actually add this to the add-on list somehow in the past, maybe long in the past. And also the fact that this particular, operator IO catalog image, that's something we don't actually own either. That's been built by a different process. So that if we actually want to do the add-on thing and actually using a different tag, then we need to somehow owning that image at some point, at least find a way to pin it to a tag that's not latest. So I think that we need to discuss it further to see how that's gonna work. It's not, I don't feel like this is something high priority that we need to tackle on right away.
Well, it's high priority if we care about the OLM add-on remaining a thing that's supported in Minikube, which is pretty nice that it's there, honestly.
It is certainly, even though I actually personally haven't used it yet, because we having a script for this with add-on using Minikube directly without using add-on, I don't think.
Oh yeah, I mean, my thinking is this is just a discovery vehicle for people that don't know.
Yeah, for people, I totally agree.
So would it cost us a lot to take it over?
I think
I don't think so.
The one concern I have with like doing it on a release basis is that our releases are so infrequent that the Minikube add-ons view of that catalog is going to be old often.
I think that's a separate issue, right? Like we should release more frequently upstream in general.
Yeah, I think Alex is right, and Alex, I think Nick also mentioned earlier, this is the catalog, right? So even if it's a little bit outdated, it's not a big deal as long the image is available, because literally just spin up a catalog source, right? So if the content is a bit outdated, maybe some operator doesn't work anymore, and so on, so on. But you're still having a Minikube cluster of Kubernetes with OM installed and everything ready to use, and maybe they just want to create or deploy their own catalog source anyway, so the default one is not something they care so much about. So to me, the content is not a big deal here. It's about make sure the add-on actually working properly, in the sense that, oh, this will not fail because the image is not available or something like that.
Yeah, I kind of see this as like there's really two different components of this add-on and they have different release cycles. I think this is kind of what some of you guys were already saying. So I haven't looked at how this add-on stuff works, but it might just be that really we need to have separate processes for updating the add-on when the catalog is released versus updating the add-on when OLM is released.
So it seems like we all think this is valuable, and it's nice to support, a community-driven effort to make OLM more accessible. So it might make sense to assign this to someone so that we can identify those questions, right? Like how much is this going to take to support, and what will that process look like? I am happy to take that on.
I agree. That sounds good. I actually want to move on from this conversation as well, because I think like to me, we need to think about this real quick a little bit and look into the add-on a little bit and look into the process of this image being built, and see how that's going to fit to our process. And if we need a separate process to deal with it, then we need to come up with a plan for that. And comment on this to make sure that we can that. So I assign to you, Alex, and any further update, feel free to comment on the issue. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. This is the task one that should be done. So ignore that. It's the next one. Suppose this is somehow I feel like this is something I saw on Slack as well. This is not really particularly descriptive.
They're complaining about the CR. This isn't even related to our project. This is complaining about the Tecton operator, which seems to
okay.
have, that must be named pipeline.
I'm trying to understand how is this relevant to OM?
Well, I don't think it's relevant necessarily to us, but I think what we should probably do is just point them in the right direction, i.e. tell them, hey, OLM doesn't control, which CRDs are reconciled by an operator it installs. You'll have to reach out to the people at URL,
Oh, yeah, I agree. We certainly don't own this operator. Does operator even owning by a team at Red Hat at all? Or this is just a random upstream operator that we have a GitHub link somewhere, maybe? I actually never even see this operator before, so I had no idea. Yeah, okay, let me look it up, this specific operator and comment on this later, because I think just what Alex just said is have nothing to do with us, pretty much just related to this specific operator, and they need to reach out to whoever owning it to deal with the CRD on that particular operator and go from there. So yeah, let's send it to me. Actually, I'll deal with that later. All right, let's move on. We actually spending quite a bit of time here. All right, next. This is owner 2 is testing related. This is been tried in the past, so I think we basically reaching on the new one already. Let's go down to the bottom because I actually want to closing a few things out today if we can. All right, this is I think these two have been discussed in the past, hence the triad flag there. So I'm just ignoring them for now. Let's go to the one that haven't been touched at all. See if we can either close it down or comment on something. All right. This is about installing OM on the K3S. Did anyone have any experience installing OM on the mini community, so to speak? Is that something we're interested on supporting or enable perhaps?
When was this
When did
issue
the thing
open?
open?
This looks really old. 2019.
2019, yeah.
Scroll down. What were our responses?
Actually Nick responded in the past,
Yeah.
many years ago. Not many, but
Right.
they actually opened an issue on the K3S, but that issue also closed already.
Yeah, it's scroll down and see what our last response was from our team.
No one responded to this ever since. I think you was the last one responded to it. Even though the comment here is it worked well actually, basing on the comment from this particular guy say that everything seemed to be working. Yeah, and even he posted output here with on the part running that we require to running in OM catalog, even package server, and even the default catalog source here. So that work. So it's work for Ubuntu, but not for RHEL apparently. Oh, actually no. This guy said it's actually working as well. So it's working. So we on good now, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed to be working. No.
K3S cluster 118 running K3OS 11. So the last say said that it was. Just close it because it's stale.
I agree.
There's really not enough information here, and from everything we've seen, it's on the K3S side. So last, yeah, 2 years ago. So
All right then. Let's move on to the next issue. Okay. Oh, so this is just essentially complaining about the field name, because this is on the subscription spec. This is the package name that you need to do on the spec. The field mean name, and a little bit confusing in a way that they don't know what name exactly they try to put in here. And the suggestion here is it should be renamed package name. Do we, I mean, we can introduce that name, but I'm not sure this is particularly a naming problem or just documentation problem in a way that we just need to specifically tell the name.
I don't
Go
think
ahead.
you can solve this necessarily through documentation. My bad, Boo, I didn't mean to cut you off. But I think this is just more API limitation. I think this is pretty reasonable, but whether or not it's worth it with the potential development of new APIs is probably a decent trade-off. I agree with Alex though. You probably have to do this in a backwards compatible way. So you'd have to push like package name through documentation. It's like the first class field, and name is still there as a deprecated, but we'll still respect it internally.
Yeah. But do we have any intention to do this? This has been a few years on already, and I don't think it's particularly helpful to do this anymore, given what you just said, that we potentially going to introducing some other API that basically allow us to install and operate in a different way, that no longer using subscription anymore.
I don't think we're gonna do this.
Yeah,
I
that's what I'm
think
saying.
it's worth closing and moving on.
All right then.
Could we point them to the documentation on the new the work we're doing? Like, can we point them to something to say that, like, instead of like, oh, we're just not going to do this, can we show that, hey, we think this is fair, but with the plan to move to new APIs, you know, like we're gonna address it more there and not update the subscription API.
Yeah, sure. So this would be linked to the rug tag stuff. Is that correct? It seems like a good place to bring it in.
This API, subscription API, is probably going to get replaced with stuff that'll be in Depi, not Recback.
Okay, then we have not have an enhancement for Depi yet. So do we having a place to put here? My HackMD maybe.
We have
or,
the OLM team HackMD that Per just opened, and I'm pretty sure his preliminary Depi work is in there.
all right. I don't have a link with that. Per, would you mind?
Yep.
I just put a link in the chat.
Ah,
just
cool.
now.
Quick draw.
But can leave it
Yeah,
with
so
me.
if we can I'm aside to pair for now, and he can paste the link in and close it out, and I think we should be fine. I already market try it, so we can deal with that later. Just make sure we having it in at with us. All right. Okay. let's try to close out maybe 2 more before I'm switching over to the registry side. Oh, this is the downstream support. I mean downright support. I'm sorry. So essentially, just the thing about rolling back to previous version if something doesn't work, on option to do so. I think this is something we have been talking in the past, and I think we did attempt to discuss the solutions for this, but we never actually done this. Do we have any plan to do this anytime soon, or ever maybe? Maybe the future API, the DEPI and the roadmap will potentially support this, maybe?
I think we should try, at least under certain circumstances, but I think then we have to start discussing this, separating the controller package from the API package. Because I think we could more easily support this in some use cases than others. But still just a discussion.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. In terms of like, we have been discussed about this in the past, but there's no traction in terms of like any plan to support this. And I feel like the conversation about a Delray cap dying off already is, I think in the past we actually talked about this more, but as far as I know, in the past couple of years, we haven't even talked anything to do with Delray ever since. I don't think. I think ever since this, pretty much the issue been open.
I think this is one that will always come back. So if you want to close it, I think that's okay. If we have like we can just say we don't have anything planned, but I don't know how other people feel, but I think the issue of downgrade is somewhat of a boomerang one.
Yeah, I mean, even me commenting this about 2 years ago, I think. Is that a year, 2 years ago? Over a year ago, but we had no imminent plan to do this. And it literally market still.
Yeah, I'll just close it out.
So I'm gonna close it. And if they want to open it again in the new issue, that should be fine if they want to do so, and we can revisit that later. All right. Let's see if I can closing one more cell before heading out. Okay. I had no idea what this thing is about. There's a PR for this, and this PR actually got merged already. This link to Nick, you remember anything about this at all?
Gen TOC. Is it follow? Can you follow that link?
So the comment here is about Gen Doc.
This seems like there was some work that somebody had done to make it so that this table of contents is generated by from command, and we can add that to support it. But I think with the next work to create a OLM documentation site, I don't know that I want to.
This is out of date at this point, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. This is out of date.
All right, then. So I'm not closing this.
I will ask you that after you close this, we have some people on the call, Akihiko, I think, who has a bunch of new open issues and PRs for them that are really useful. And is there anything that we want to go over on them while we have them here? You know
Sure.
what I mean? You can go ahead and close that one first, but yeah.
And before we move on, I just want to ask the question. So I know it may make sense to have some developer docs in this repository, but in terms of design docs, does it make sense to continue including them in OLM, or should we make sure to move those upstream to that other website?
I think
Yeah,
we need to have a meeting about the docs in general, and I don't want to make that decision here.
Okay.
All right then. So I think that pretty much on this side. So Nick was saying that we want to go over. I mean, most of the PR been open recently is about testing, fixing test cases. Is there anything we want to go over in that end?
Yeah, so testing side, I fixed some of the, I fixed in a test, some of them, but some of them I'm changing the runtime code to fix that E2E failure. So I want to to review that I think 1 or 2 pull request which I changed the runtime side code. Like I added the mutex blocks for integrate creation the install plan. It created twice by creating the one subscription or something. So I want to review that one. And also I create, and then one issue I found, I don't remember, actually it's too long time ago. Yeah, I can put in a Slack, say these the pull request is changing the runtime code later. So that I want you to review the PRs for it.
Yeah, sure. I am aware that you're having a few PR here that we can see here. And I think they have been under review already. I see some of them been either put through local to me and stuff. I guess just need to make sure this been at some point get merged eventually, so we don't have way too many of them piling up here, because I know you have quite a few here. So far I can see 6, 7 of them. 6 of them. All of them is helpful for sure. And just remind everyone to take a look and either look to me, approve, or comment, so they can goes on their way.
Okay. Yeah. One more thing. So do you want the issue? I create the issue and pull request both. So is that, do I have to create do you want me to create an issue, or just create a PR to explain what that change is?
Yeah, you can certainly do both. I already see you have done that for some already.
Yeah.
Hey,
so if you want to continue doing so.
I think our process is always to do both, right? So you create the issue first, and then if you want to snipe the implementation of fixing that issue, then you can create a PR at the same time and do that. If you have this way, like if you have multiple PRs to fix one issue, you can sort of bind them together under the issue as well. So that's the reasoning there.
Yeah. Okay. I'll continue doing that. Thank you.
Sound good. And I think you were saying you were gonna post in Slack again. That would be nice if you can, compile a list of the pending PR here and post that on the OM dev upstream Slack, just to remind people, ask people for review. So if anyone, on upstream is just on review and stuff, so they can do it as well, because I think all of this is, PR that, easy to review, in my opinion, not too complex, so they can help out. That would be nice. So thank you in advance for that. All right then.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's move on to the registry side, see if anything particularly helpful here. So I think we have quite a few new stuff. All right. Let's go with that. So this complaint and issue that when they build a bundle with the builder image, it doesn't work. So this is a particular error here. Here constructing the bundle, cannot pausing, pattern missing the provided required PI. This doesn't sound like something. Do we even still using this upstream builder image? I thought we having a new image for this, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if we, so there's a new just OPM image that I think all of the docs and various bits of code reference now. I don't know if we still build this. So this image is built based on a Quay trigger, which I don't know if we've ever gone back and disabled yet. I think the plan was originally, let's get this new OP image out there. Let's keep building the upstream OPM builder image just in case there's some issues with the OPM image. Turns out that was a good idea because back in like November, December, I think there were a few issues about like CGO enabled and some other like static build things that were causing that image not to be totally right. But I think all of that stuff is fixed now. So we might be able to just say like, just go use the OPM image and let us know. We might want to separately, talk about getting rid of this image and completely stopping support for it.
Yeah, sounds good. So I guess we can recommend them to retry this with the OPM image to see if it has the issue or not. If it doesn't, then we should probably just recommend them that we're gonna deprecate it, this image, the builder image here, and then go forward with the OPM image to be the one that you should use by default, no the image. All right. I can comment on this later. Wrong person. Then I will close it out. All right, let's move on to the next issue. Okay, hopefully this is not gonna be another Podman problem. Let me read this real quick. So they're doing some gRPC call command to get something. Oh, there's some conversation here with Joe. You have any update on this at all, Joe? Is it resolved? Because they mentioned about render command as well here.
I never saw the original, or no, that was Martin, I see. I think we can probably close it based on my first response there. Could you go back? Is there anything at the very end?
Yeah, Martin, there's another.
Yeah. This is still an ongoing conversation. So this is probably worth talking about, at least for a minute or two. And I think Kevin, you might have touched base on some of this conversation. Anyway, what the upstream Operator Hub catalog folks want to do is stop using, right now they're using the catalog to populate all of the data that's in the web page for Operator Hub. And actually, no, they don't do that. They use the initializer from the repo, and that populates everything for all of the bundles in operatorhub.io. When they go and build the catalog image, that doesn't have, like we all know, like that only has CSVs for the head bundles in the channels. So what they're basically saying is, hey, we'd really like to be able to build the operatorhub.io website based on just the catalog. And what that would mean would mean putting the CSVs for all of the bundles in the catalog, which I don't think we want to do. So we need to probably have some conversations among our team, and then also with Martin and Joseph about how this is going to work for them after teams are going to be able to start opting into file-based catalogs, and they'll no longer have like the full contents of like the CSVs and stuff that are used to render the Operator Hub site. So I think it's probably good to just leave this open because this kind of captures that request, although it probably needs to be kind of renamed and changed a little bit based on what they're really trying to accomplish. But that's kind of the TLDR what this is about.
All right, so basically surrounding the fact that we need to populate the bundle content in the Firebase catalog source, so we can actually query them later, specifically on the package server side. Even though, just remind me real quick, Joe, on the render command, does that do it now? Because I know you have a PR for that mod.
It does.
In the past.
Upstream, it's in there, and 410, it'll be in there. I think the problem though is that, like, do we really want to have the CSVs for every single bundle in the catalog that actually gets deployed on the cluster? And I think the answer is no. So what we probably need to tell them is like, okay, well, here's how you can use the index image as a source of truth, such that you can go build the metadata that you need to use to host the content on Operator Hub.io. But I don't think we want to say that the index is going to contain everything that they need to render the website. Like, they'll have to derive what they need from the index to render the website.
Yeah, so yeah, because I think they need that for the content for the operator Hub.io, right? So they need everything.
Right.
On the catalog side, we don't need that because we only need that for the header channel, right? As you mentioned here before on this specific comment here, but for the website they do.
Yeah,
So that's an interesting use case there that I actually didn't expect.
So I mean, there is something to be said. Like, maybe we should have more metadata available in the package manifest API, such that other aspects of non-head bundles can be read by clients. I know some of like the kubectl operator stuff could be improved if it had more information about non-channel heads. So I don't know what we want to do there. I think that's probably a pretty long conversation, just all this stuff with the package manifest API and this conversation about what goes in the catalog and what doesn't, which I don't think we want to have here, but probably something we need to talk about separately.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Go ahead, Nick.
I think there was always the idea that with the new formats for getting data from an index, you'd be able to have the meta schema, which is very similar to the property meta schema, where you have like the type value pairs, and you could just like arbitrarily add new types of metadata there. So presumably, if users add that metadata in the future for like images separately, we just opaquely carry that forward, and then the console extracts that by reading from the catalog directly. That makes sense, rather than the package manifest. But that's probably not backwards compatible with what we have now, right?
Right. I think the crux of that piece of the problem is for package manifest API, it wants to see a CSV. So we'd have to construct the CSV in the gRPC API to hand it to the package manifest package server, which means we'd have to know about the properties.
Yeah, they need to build, we would need to build an adapter to package manifests to handle that.
Right. Which we talked about when we did the file-based catalog design, and we opted not to because we thought, maybe CSVs are going away, maybe some of this metadata isn't as relevant anymore, and we didn't want to make some of those things like first-class fields yet. So the decision at the time was, let's just stuff the CSV into the index as like a opaque CSV base64 property, and we can just shovel that through. But we knew all along that wasn't like a long-term thing we wanted to keep doing.
Yeah, I agree. This is require a little bit of long conversation here for this, because it's regarding some of the future path as well about CSV itself that John already mentioned. It is something we gonna changing on that end. So yeah, let's keep this issue open, and then I'm assigned to Joe at the moment. Just we have something to assign to, someone to assign to. And then we probably gonna having a conversation later on, and then absolutely we'll comment it back on this on some future development on this. All right. A lot of time left, so just let I think there are 2 more new issue here. I think so. Just get them done today. All right. Index package. Okay.
So this one has a PR on it that I've been commenting on. Basically what they want to do is be able to, what they're trying to do is run a validator, like build a validator tool for bundle images. And the way they know which bundle images to validate is by looking at an index. But there are use cases. I haven't yet pushed my index to a remote registry, so I want to be able to use these libraries to look at images that haven't yet been pushed. And these libraries right now assume that they're pushed. So if you go into that other PR, you'll see that at the very bottom, I actually suggested that they, if they're building the index, then that means they have the index source metadata. So they either have the SQLite database file somewhere in their file system, or they have the FBC directory, in which case they can just use the render library and traverse it, iterate it to find the bundle images, and then do whatever they were doing with the bundle images before. And then the whole, this whole PR basically doesn't need to get merged, since there's a different, probably better way of doing this anyway.
Yeah. With the newer Firebase catalog source, I'm not sure why they need to using the indexer anymore, because the indexer is for basically for the, the image base,
Right.
so to speak.
The SQLite based.
Yeah, no, that's a good word for that. The SQLite base. So,
which I mentioned in my comment.
All right. Yeah. So that sounds good in the sense that if they can using the new API, the render would do that for them, because I know the render itself. We having a validation for that end as well, right? We had a command for that that they can use.
We have a validate command for validating the index, but what they're trying to build is a tool that validates bundles. So what they want to do is say like their tool, basically the input is give me an index image in which you want all the bundles validated. So what they're trying to do is extract the index, the bundles from the index, and then iterate all of those and do their bundle validation.
Yeah, I see that. Technically speaking, we have a validate for the bundle on the alpha command, I think, and I thought SDK have the command to validate the bundle. Does it?
I think that's right. I think it uses the same underlying code, so that might be worth pointing out. Like, maybe you could just contribute over here. They didn't say what they were trying to validate. Maybe it was something specific for their use case that wouldn't apply to the upstream validators.
All right. Yeah. So let's see what I can comment here on this particular issue.
I would just link Joe's response from the PR itself.
Yeah, I think that's good.
That perfectly sure. This is the link. Where's? Yeah, this is the PR's link here. And then Joe, this comment quite a few things here. So let's see. Yeah, the last comment was from Joe. So he did mention quite a few things here. Okay. Yeah, let me dig them up and put in there for them if they need to see things further. Actually, why that look a little bit strange to me? Okay. Right. So this is probably the last issue for today from Chris. Joe, this comment. Oh, so there's quite a conversation here. Is this about the fact that you can manually changing the index? I mean the Firebase catalog content. So this is basically the question. I think I remember this conversation about what is the short of two in terms of like the catalog itself, the JSON blob or the bundle. Is that correct?
Generally, yeah. There's there's various sources of truth, right? Like some of the stuff comes from the CSV, some of the stuff comes from the metadata directory in the bundle. All of that gets rendered into the file-based catalog as properties and other first-class fields. So like, if I go and change some of the aspects of my index, does that override everything else? So there's all sorts of questions about like, how does this work? So it's not easy to answer because there's a lot of different ways to answer it depending on what the specific question is. I did my best. It would probably be helpful for others to take a look and see if they have other ways to answer it that I couldn't conjure.
Yeah, I recall you asked this question on Slack, not the upstream Slack, unfortunately, on this, and I did respond to it. And I guess this is a good conversation for anyone else to take a look and see what their opinion is about the sort of true. But specifically, I think I recall this the Slack thread at one point about depending on the where the content where this thing is, you basically define what's it a sort of true, because when the catalog source, the file catalog source been deployed on the cluster, then it is the sort of true. Whatever you're changing to it, it basically the sort of true for everything that we're doing on the cluster side in terms of like, the OM will carry information on the catalog source on the live cluster, and doing all of the resolution and decision making there. But on the building side, in terms of the off cluster side, then you need to get involved with the bundle in turn, which in turn involving CSV, and then that will be kind of the sort of true there, because you build the catalog from the bundle, not the other way around. Then the sort of true changing on that definition in that area. So it's a little bit, different content, different area, meaning different things. So that is quite a complex conversation there. So everyone, if you guys have the time, take a look and see what your opinion is about this. And we probably need some serious documentation on this.
So this is related to a conversation that I started in the team operator framework thread this morning, that I actually learned that all of the bundle metadata is coming from the index across all of OLM. So I think that actually makes this easier to answer, because we can just say like the index on cluster is a source of truth. And as Kevin mentioned in that thread, like now that we have file-based catalog, there's no need to ever maintain metadata in the bundles at all anymore, because people will be maintaining their catalogs directly and will have access to just put that metadata in the index rather than in the bundles. Once we get to that point, I think that makes it, if that's what we want to do, I think that makes it much more obvious what the source of truth is. Right now, we're in this like weird middle state where like all of these existing bundles exist that have existing metadata in them. We have render that knows how to translate from the bundle metadata to the index, and that kind of confuses it a little bit. I think a lot of this confusion is just because like we're still in this like intermediate state where people are still using the old way of doing things, but we're trying to adapt and build tooling that helps it migrate to the new thing. So I agree, good documentation is probably necessary here, but it might be another one of those things where we need to have a short conversation to say like, what do we think the end state is? Let's answer the question with that in mind, such that people can start wrapping their heads around like where this is going and what the source of truth both is right now and will become more obvious later. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I have some thought on that area specifically as well, in terms of like the fact that people, if they decided to maintaining the file-based catalog source YAML, the JSON blob, and using that at the sort of true, and whatever they're adding, basically just changing the text information in the JSON file. Then, as you said, that eventually the bundle, which is a vehicle, is no longer the sort of true anymore. And if they continue doing so, basically just continue changing the catalog source text there, then that definitely works. But if they intend to rebuild it, from bundle, then that's a different conversation there. Because you need to
Yeah.
keep track the diff, right? The diff between what you're changing there and what's in the bundle.
Well,
So
I
that
think
way-
Kevin's point was that like if in the eventual future where we have CSV-less bundles and bundles are pure manifests only, then there's no source of truth or possibility of things getting out of date because the bundle image only ever has the manifests and the index only ever has the metadata. And they're only in that one place, so you can change either one without affecting the other. Now there might be some cases where like, oh, I added some manifests to my to my bundle image, and therefore I need to change my metadata to account for the fact that there's a new dependency I have or something like that. But in general, like in that future, it seems like there's clear separation and it's much more obvious what changes affect what things on cluster.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, let's keep this conversation going on this specific issue, and then we probably need to decide it about the documentation about how this, and probably like Joe said about what happening now and what's going to be the end goal in the future, and basically the workflow, how that's going to work, and what's the recommendation in the documentation side about how this is supposed to be come together, so that we can decide it how to recommend advertising this properly. So that sounds good. All right then. So I think this is the last issue. So I think we tried on the new issue here on the registry side. Unfortunately, couldn't get to closing out anything on, but that should be fine. We can consider this in the next meeting. All right. We seriously have time here. So thank you everyone for joining. And happy New Year's again. And I will see you guys in the next upstream meeting. You all have a great day and
Thanks,
see you
man.
later. Bye.
Thanks, Boo.